What is going on, ladies and gents? Ronnie here with Speed Lab. Today we got two cars for you. The first thing we're gonna cover is actually Serge's car. This is the one that we recently did a video. This was the speed run car. I think it was 4 weeks ago that we released that video. In 4 weeks, we got a brand new 2.2 in there, brand new cylinder head, fully built, ready to go. We do have engines at the machine shop, so you know, it makes it a breeze for us to kind of get these cars in and out, and customer doesn't have to wait like 6, 7, 8 months, a year for a build to be completed. Again, the customer doesn't have to forget how the car looks, you know, for about a year. Now it's completely being controlled by a Haltech Elite 2500. So it has our SPL glove box mount. So it goes behind the glove box. Makes the glove box kind of useless, but you can still use the lid, close it, open it. Cleans everything up, super nice. 5-bar Haltech map sensor. We have a 10-bar fuel pressure sensor, a 10-bar oil pressure sensor from Haltech. He already has a flex fuel sensor. The flex fuel sensor, we're just gonna share that signal to the Haltech, and we're gonna run this thing on flex, so he's gonna have pump and go flex fuel. It's on a 3584 RS. We just swapped the hot side to a 0.83 V-band hot side. Before it had like a you know, OEM style manifold and hot side, which was pretty small, you know, choking it. On E85, we should be making mid to high 7s pretty comfortable. So another thing that we upgraded was the intake manifold. Now we have the Magnus V5 intake manifold. The Magnus intake manifold does require you to use a different upper intercooler piping, just because it does sit 6 inches lower. In this case, we used our SPL 3-inch upper intercooler pipe that we make in-house over here. We do have an STM catch can. We have a dash 10 over there and a dash 6 over here. Although I would like to add another dash 10 here, just because whenever you go build motor, big boost, you're always gonna have blow by. He does have a twin 525 fuel pump hanger from Bulletproof Racing. We did get some Fergola lines and fittings, so we're gonna do full PTFE. Right now we just had the stock lines. He has a STM-6 line over here that essentially just screws onto the factory hard line. So we're gonna get rid of that. We're gonna have a dash 8 coming in, and we're gonna have a dash 6 going back. So the manifold itself, the runners, everything, 321 stainless steel. We've got a billet of flange for the cylinder head. Another thing that's special with this build is, if you look, we got an 82mm Bosch throttle body with an adapter for the Magnus intake manifold. So again, the Haltech's gonna be running this. That's pretty much it. We already got the engine primed and ready to go. What I'm doing right now is I'm just remote mounting all these sensors. It's a good idea to not have it hard mounted to like the intake manifold, because the vibrations, especially if you have solid mounts, will end up killing the sensors eventually. So the oil pressure sensor and the map sensor are remote mounted. If you got stock mounts, it's not really that necessary. The vibrations aren't as crazy. Another nice thing that we got here is the IGN-1A coils from Ohm Racing. This is still wired in waste spark. To convert it to sequential, it's about $500–600 to get the harness. Is it worth it? Yes and no. It's nice to be able to not have the waste spark and be able to tune individual cylinders. So let's say one cylinder is a little bit more prone to knock. You can pull a couple degrees of timing out of that particular one, as opposed to if I do it now, the other cylinder that's firing would essentially be pulling timing out of that too. So although you're trying to pull 2 degrees, you're effectively pulling 4 degrees and dropping a lot of power, basically. With that being said, I have a lot of wiring to do on this, so we're just gonna switch over, go over there and talk about Ryan's car, because it had a pretty nasty surprise for us today. This is Ryan's car. I've worked on this car for, well, last person that touched it, from my understanding, was me when I tuned it at JRP when I still was a co-owner over there. And we ended up making some serious power. I think we made like 670 Dynojet, something like that, on the stock bottom end. And that at that time it used to belong to another one of our clients. our buddy Ryan bought it off of him, and for some reasons that we're not going to talk about, because maybe he doesn't, you know, want it addressed, the car sat for a while. And the last couple months that it sat, it was kind of just, you know, sitting in the backyard. I'm not exactly sure where it was sitting, but it was exposed to the elements. So one thing that happened was, obviously, you know, all the California rains and all that stuff. This car did have a up pipe hood exit exhaust, along with an up pipe for the wastegate dump. So as you guys can imagine, the elements were not being too kind to this setup. Now, yeah, oh yeah, look at it from here.
Oh yeah.
So the turbocharger was completely just seized initially. I kind of freed it up, but as you can hear it, it's not the happiest. This is a 6266 Gen 2. We got a HPT 6466 now. Came to pull the plugs. All the spark plug wells were completely flooded with water, so I had to blow that out. Pulled the spark plugs out. The plugs didn't look that bad. Bore scoped the motor and just saw a ton of water. So of course the plugs were out. You know, I put a brand new battery on it because the car was not started for 3 years. So cranked it over, water went everywhere. I mean, I cleaned most of it, but if you guys look on the floor, there's still a bunch of rusty water that's kind of just stained, and also over here, which I have to clean up before it stains the valve cover. You guys can get the idea. And unfortunately, my assumptions were right. I did a compression test. Number 1 was at a $120, number 2 was at $155, 3 was at like 70, and 4 was at like 30 psi. So I already knew we had some major issues. The stock exhaust valves of these cars are very prone to corrosion. Even running it on E, you know, eventually will corrode them to the point that, you know, it won't seat and seal properly on the actual seat of the valve or on the cylinder head. However, we had bigger issues because the engine was pretty much seized from the rings kind of sticking to the wall. So when I tried to turn the motor over, it was giving me a hard time, but eventually it did turn over. So unfortunately, at this point, we're gonna have to get Ryan a brand new motor. I'm pretty sure we're gonna do a 2.2 SLR just like we've been doing on, how many cars have we?
A lot.
I think just this year, we installed probably 30 of the 2.2s here, not counting the ones that we've shipped out. We've shipped a couple out of the country, and we've shipped probably over a dozen just nationwide here. I have a bunch of 2.0 pistons, but I always end up using the 2.0 stuff for myself because for some reason most people just want the 2.2, and I understand the extra torque is super nice. It will make 1,000 on my dyno, which will be super neat on a 2.2 SLR. He's gonna hurt a lot of feelings. And this is an E85 only car, so it's gonna be perfect. We're gonna have enough fuel for about 850-ish. Other things that are super nice about this car: custom cash can on his car, which I really like. Custom upper intercooler piping, custom lower intercooler piping. I mean, you guys can see this is titanium. It's done super beautifully. He also has a Magnus V5 intake manifold. Every time you can't really see a manifold on an Evo, it's because it's a Magnus and it's sitting lower. So these manifolds really do tend to make quite a lot of power. And this is a Sheepy turbo kit. I believe it's a custom turbo kit. It's not their normal forward facing. It was a custom deal done for him. Super nice car. MJ Detail came here, my buddy MJ. Just kind of brought the car back to life, did a full paint correction on it. Still not 100% just because it's sat for so long, but you know, they did the best they could on it. We do have a new transmission. It's a 5-speed refresh from DB Trans.
Dude, your whole shop is turning orange, bro. You might need to charge Ryan a little extra for a cleanup, bro.
He's got that homie discount going already. Gonna see if there's anything left because I already did a full compression test, so we kind of got all the fluid out. But let's see what's left in there.
Is it gonna squirt on me?
I hope it squirts on me.
I hope so, dude.
So I think real quickly, because we missed filming what happened with all the water, you know, coming out of the motor. There's for sure water here still, here especially, just because that's at the lowest point. So what I'm gonna do real quickly is I'm gonna pull the manifold off. We're gonna have to pull the turbo anyway. Motor's coming out anyway. So I'm gonna pull that off, and then I'm gonna tilt the manifold down in a bin so you guys can see how much water there is in there. And it's just the nasty, rusty water that just tells you that the engine's, you know.
I'll take a little sip of it.
I don't think you want to. But
Let me see the other side.
do you want to?
No.
Yeah. Just a lot of grime, man.
It looks good, bro.
Yeah, it looks great. When the truth. Okay. So I clearly have not done this before, but I knew it. I told you.
Oh Lord.
I told you, buddy.
It's still full of fucking
All right,
water.
Let's go over here.
Ew, bro.
God.
Is that thing toast? Like,
No, it's fine. Just want to make sure the flange surfaces are like cleaned up. One thing with Sheepy's manifolds that I never liked is they use a mild steel flange, so it's not stainless, it always rusts. Let's look at number 3. You can see why we're blown out of there. I'm gonna hook up my cylinder leak down tester. I'm gonna make sure this number 3 is at top dead center. Compression stroke, which is when both intake and exhaust valves are closed. I'm gonna pressurize it, and then I'm gonna spray brake fluid inside so you guys see how much air is coming out, because it's just gonna, you know, bubble up the brake fluid. So that'll be a nice visual representation of it's fucking fucked me. What is nice about his situation is
nothing.
all these connections that you see over here, knock sensor, all the alternator connectors, all this stuff can be unplugged from here, and then from up there we're just gonna pull it back up. I'm gonna tuck it to the side. The only other thing we got to do down here, obviously it's drained of oil. You want to make sure that the monolock is popped off. So the wedge collar that holds the clutch to the clutch pressure plate to the actual throttle bearing is popped off. This one's popped off because we never engaged it when we installed the transmission. And you want to take off the oil cooler lines, put a glove or something around it, put a zip tie around it so it doesn't leak, and then just kind of push it up somewhere so it's out of the way. And then after that, once you drop it on an engine bed, which I'll show you guys an engine bed in a second, you want to put a piece of wood right over here to kind of level it, because if you lower it on the bed, then the transmission side kind of sits a little bit lower, and when you go to pull it, it's kind of a pain in the ass. So I like to have a piece of wood over here to kind of tilt the trans up a little. The only other tip I have for you guys, obviously you're gonna have to take the belt off, swing up the power steering pump. So you got 3 14mm bolts and a 12mm up there. And as long as the belt's off, you don't gotta touch anything else. Take the starter off, take the trans inspection cover off, which is 2 14s and 110 over here, 110 over here underneath the starter. You're ready to drop the motor.
Calvin Klein's, baby.
What?
Nice.
You checking out my...
I was checking you out a little bit. No homo.
Alright, bro.
Has there ever been a car where you're just like, fuck it, I don't want to deal with this? And like, they take it back?
Yeah.
No, I'm not getting paid enough for this shit, bro.
You thought you were getting paid?
I'm a certified technician, buddy.
Sure.
I'm fucking much better at this shit, bro. Like, this is the fucking Myvec right here, bro. And then intake manifold and head gasket. Huh?
Are you talking like you know what you're talking about?
Dude, of course I know what I'm talking about. I was just telling them how this is the Myvec right here.
Oh, sure. Uh-huh.
And that's the fucking intake manifold.
The more you know, right?
Yeah.
Which one's the intake manifold?
This one right here.
And what
this,
is that?
This is the head gasket, dude.
Correct. Wow.
Exactly.
Sure.
Move out the way, let me take over.
You know a lot more than I thought you did.
So, Mr. Ronnie Built.
So all these gaskets get replaced when we do a build. Every single gasket, even if they're okay. Like this is okay to reuse, but we don't reuse it. This bolt that holds the water pipe in the back, you always want to make sure it's installed. If you have a little bit of too much pressure in your cooling system, it'll shoot right out. Ask me how I know. So if you use a 4G64, whether you're building a 2.4 liter or a 2.1 liter D-stroker, you cannot use this line. That's why you'll see people using that braided line, because the block itself is 6 millimeter taller than the 4G63 block, and that, you know, the 6 millimeters, obviously, you know, you kind of have to account for that. Now you can bend this up and twist it, but the right way to do it, well, you only have one choice, because it's not tapped for this M12 banjo bolt essentially. So you would have to have an adapter, because it uses the 1/8 inch MPT. I believe it's an 1/8 inch MPT. Usually you have an oil pressure switch there for the Evo 8s or, you know, the other blocks. When on the Evo 9, it's right here. So it's the same exact sensor. It's, you know, this is whenever you don't have oil pressure, or this does not see pressure, you'll have that light that flickers on the dash. Another thing is, you'll usually see a 10 millimeter bolt there. If that's not there, it means someone's already been here. So the cylinder head has at one point been taken off, or the Myvec line at least, but I don't see why you would take off the Myvec line. This is a stock block deal. So the cylinder head's been removed before, from what I'm seeing. It's been exposed to the elements and everything's seized. So you can usually just zap this 24 off. But again, since it's kind of been exposed at this point, what I want to do is I want to counter and then loosen this so we don't end up destroying the Myvec line that he has. Because I have also done that before many times. The difference between the 8 and 9, the 9 has a nipple over here. I said nipple. The 9 has a nipple over here that goes underneath the actual thermostat housing. And also, it only has a coolant temp sensor over here, where the 8 does not have this, but this nipple that you see over here in the back of the head on the Evo 8 is over here. So sometimes you'll get a car that'll have the Evo 9 nipple on the Evo 8 head, and it'll be blocked off. I've seen some Frankenstein crap like that, and it'll piss you off because it's just so easy to use the right parts for it. And they're getting very hard to like get now. Like this part is discontinued, but I stock like a couple of them. So I go on eBay, and the parts that I know they're not gonna stock, I'll just buy so I have it. And from here, you just pull that back. I'm just gonna snip the timing belt. Again, we're not gonna be using it. We're gonna pop the valve cover off, take the 10 ARP head stud, the nuts off. Started creaming on me. We can pop the head off and kind of see the damage and assess from there. So the head's ready to come off. As you guys can see, I snipped this because obviously we're getting a brand new belt. Typically, with the cam still intact in the head, you do not want to pick it up and put it down with the deck side down. The reason I say that is because if you look over here, some of these lobes are already starting to turn over and push down on the rocker, meaning some valves are already open. So if we were to put it down, you're most likely going to bend a valve, especially if you're not careful putting it down. Because everything's getting replaced, I don't really care. Valves are getting replaced, but we're gonna pull it off, we're gonna put it down, we're gonna check out the cylinders first, and then we're gonna look at the cylinder head. So, ready? Oh, baby. Jesus. I mean, it's just rust, but that's fucking nasty. I like that. Oh.
Ew. I mean, it looks fine, dude.
Yeah, of course it does. So if we look over here, we can see where the ring was sitting dormant for, I don't know, a couple of years. Got stuck over here, transferred some material because it started kind of welding itself to the cylinder wall, and we're kind of seeing the same trend over here. So the piston was here because below that there's no rust spots, but above it you can see where it just ate away at the cylinder. So there was no way this thing was sealing up.
Have you ever seen something like this?
I've seen it on cylinder heads that have been out for like a couple years. I've never seen it on a assembled block. I've seen moisture and corrosion like this, but not like this. This is some of the, like 2 and number 4 actively had water in there. So, I mean, we're kind of seeing the same trend because remember I picked up a lot of goop with my hand off of number 4 and number 2. Look, so that's number 2. Look, number 1 and number 3 are kind of dry. This one is wet. And if you look at number 4,
yeah,
is also
2 and
wet.
4 are wet.
So 2 and 4, the valves were open when it rained, and it just this happened when the California had those, you know, flash floods. So yeah, not a problem. Nothing that a 10 overboard won't fix. So we already got the pistons for it. Let me actually show you guys the pistons before we close the video out. TP1 DLC pins. The material of these pins are the same material that are used in Top Fuel dragsters. So I used to run a 250 wall H13 pin, and then I started DLC coating them. Now I'm using a 210 wall TP1 pin. So even though the pin itself is thinner and lighter, you know, less wear on the bearings whenever you have that, you know, crazy combustion event and you're really leaning on the car, the less weight you have pushing that hydrodynamic wedge of oil, the less chances of metal to metal contact and the longer your engine's gonna last. Our pistons are fairly light and so is our pins. So we're compensating with this and the pin because the rod's kind of heavy. But we've had 800-900 horsepower motors. We've had my motor that was making probably close to 1100 because I was close to like 60 pounds of boost on the street. I did a teardown and the bearings literally looked like you could put them back in an engine. So when you take the right precautions, use the correct oil, proper assembly, proper machine work, you know, you're awarded with an engine that lasts a long time. So these are our hard anodized pistons. Let's go look at the ugly ones and compare them to the pretty ones. And then you'll see.
Wait. Which one's the ugly one? Which one's the nice one?
I'll let you guys be the judge of that.
Okay.
And as you guys can see, it does not go in because this is a 20 over piston. And that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys learned something.